Greg ORSCHELN. Fix me on that. Fix me on that pronunciation.
You can say it. You can't say it ORSCHELN or really ORSCHELN.
ORSCHELN. Okay.
ORSCHELN, kind of like I tell people Porsche. Take off the P.
ORSCHELN, like you're driving a Porsche, so you're porcelain, but you're ORSCHELN.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So Greg ORSCHELN, from you're moving back to St. Louis, video production, video editing. You're in Chesapeake, Virginia right now. Tell me a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what you've been up to.
Sure. Yeah. I've been out here in Chesapeake for about 7 years. Definitely I created my own business. A friend of mine in Raleigh, North Carolina, and myself had started a little startup recruiting consulting business. So alongside of the video production and the video editing, had started this little company to try to get out and help other people. And we work with, AV integrators, manufacturers, designing consulting firms.
Okay.
So started that back in maybe 2016. And then 2020 kind of hit, gave us some bumps. And then we're trying to kind of find our way back. So I think business is kind of slowly starting to kind of creep back in. So, and now we're kind of contemplating a move back to St. Louis. So we have some family there. I've got 2 little ones. So it might kind of, it's been an adventure out here, but I think maybe going back might be smart at this stage of the game. 2 little kids that have grandparents and the whole thing. So that's kind of where I've been as of 2016. And yeah, exploring opportunities, looking around, talking to some people. I don't know. I might start my own company of some sort at some point. You never know.
So, I've got a cousin that's in recruiting, and with the exception of not going to the office, it kind of just flipped, because before quarantine, she was, I think, 3 to 4 days in the office, or let's say 3 days in the office and 2 days working from home, and then it was 1 day in the office, 4 days working at home. I mean, as far as the recruiting goes, how would you say that was impacted? I'd say, because mostly it would be scouting online, scouting digital references, LinkedIn, things of that nature.
Definitely. I mean, I was kind of thrown back as how that industry could be impacted as well. I mean, because like you are using all these recruiting tools like LinkedIn, and but I don't know if businesses just kind of stopped. They couldn't produce on their end. They just had to stop business altogether. So I think that's having clients and businesses. I think therefore they had to stop the process. Thus we had to as well, type thing.
Yeah, but in what way? I mean, still, it would just seem to me like you're able to still reach out, and through the multiverse, like you can still meet people, you can still look at people's information, their resumes, and connect with folks. What were the logistics of slowing down or closing up shop or taking a break? What logistics were affected by being quarantined?
I think logistics wise, you mean like
I guess it's like what the in-person interview maybe, or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know entirely what actually stopped that process. It's so now that we're like on the flip side of a pandemic, it's kind of interesting to I mean, like very much like you were just saying. I mean, people are like, oh, I'm in the office twice a week now, or so is business. I mean, are things just kind of slowly trickling back? So I guess for everybody, from everyone's standpoint, what does that entail? And I guess I'm still trying to figure out those answers now that we're getting out of this pandemic, so to speak. So it's kind of, it's as much as I kind of want the world to turn back, I'm trying to kind of learn how it's coming back.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely seeing a hybrid. Definitely people are seeing how we went virtual and remote. And, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I started jumping on a lot of virtual live streaming stuff, events that you wouldn't have the 10,000 people at this event, but you would have maybe 500, and they are at that Coliseum or that thing, and there he is, and then
here. Finally started the video.
Oh, no problem, no problem. But there is that. But now there's that hybrid, and I think with today's technology, people are going to take advantage of that, saying, looking at this budget, we saved so much money. We were able to still put out the same content, the same information, the same event, whatever the case may be, and we only spent 10% in our budget last year, as opposed to 2019 and 2018. So now in 2021, maybe throw in, maybe utilize 20 to 30% of the budget we're used to, and have some people, and do a hybrid thing. We'll have some people on location. We'll have a crew, and we'll have, half of the talent or the presenters or what have you on location out there, but mostly it's just going to be virtual. And, half of our talent, half of our analysts, experts, contributors, whatever, will Skype in, Zoom in, whatever, and do this whole hybrid thing. And I think it's just, like with every other major event, not post 9/11 boosted technology, COVID boosted technology, and thinking outside the box as far as connectivity and interactivity and things of that nature. And so with video production, I mean, how were you affected with video production, video editing?
I mean, I guess, being a freelancer in that regard, I guess, like you can always find avenues to get around the pandemic. I think it's just kind of a matter of who you can involve. And I mean, I had done events for a long time as well too, so even if I was just strictly doing freelance ideas on video editing, I guess I could either involve people or I didn't have to, so however avenue you wanted to take there. And then I guess fortunately for events, I had done events back in like 2015-ish, So thinking about it now, like I was fortunate enough to actually I was involved in that industry, but then I needed to pivot a little bit, so to speak. A little more money, needed to sacrifice, type thing. So I guess, when I think about it, fortunately, I was able to kind of cross over in time to where like the pandemic didn't hit me when I was in that space, so to speak. So I find myself very fortunate in a lot of ways. Yeah,
fortunate, and that's been a subject on this podcast a lot, is blessed, fortunate, hindsight. Starting in 2014, I started looking into live streaming and looking into the podcast tech and live streaming these events, and looking at different avenues of making things. Zoom started popping up in my mind, say 2018 or 2019. And I was like, how can I utilize this app? This is, this podcast, which is kind of doing all right. I mean, we've been having steady content, but me and my colleagues have tried it twice before and failed. But we were trying that whole virtual thing, bringing in Skype and Google Hangouts. And trying to be cheap and not pay for the premium packages. So we're bringing in Skype, Hangouts, and Zoom all at the same time, and trying to that was a technical disaster. But then, of course, with quarantine, it's like, of course, I'm going to pay for the premium. But after this whole live streaming thing and being on those kind of events and getting that kind of technical knowledge, experience, it was, I'm clearly, gonna say I'm blessed, because I saw that, and luckily I saw that as a trend. I saw that as the new thing coming, and I jumped all over it, and I wanted to learn it, and I wanted to do it. And then that's all it was from April to April, really.
Yeah.
was the remote, the virtual, you know, for the gallery view on Zoom. That was what was pushed out to YouTube and people's websites and people's companies, was still bringing those people together virtually as opposed to in person, and how to administer that, how to facilitate that, you know, just luck, blessed, fortunate.
Yeah, definitely. No,
Yeah.
Definitely. No, I mean, yeah, I know a lot of people that couldn't see it that way, or they were forced to totally make a pivot to, you know, that they, yeah, I mean, it's dependent upon the person. It's very much, yeah, I mean, you know, it's very interesting that we're talking about it right now too, because I mean, so many people, gosh forbid what their situations were. Who knows? So I mean, I consider myself, yeah, to still be alive, and oh my gosh, we lived through this. We lived through that.
And again, you know, like you mentioned, there was a lot of people that were going through that fun employment, and that and whatever you want to call it, and backlogged on that unemployment. And I think I registered for maybe a week, and then someone said, but at the same time, I kind of started off the podcast, and then someone saw that and said, bro, we're doing that now. These, you know, these freelance rosters that I was on doing the live streaming, they said, oh, we're doing exactly that. They are podcasts, but they are the seminars, the webinars, the conferences, you know, the government meetings and all that stuff. We're doing it that way now. I'm like, hey, I'm in, you know. And then it just, and then each thing, you know, my own podcast would benefit from what I learned from that, continuing on. And then it's just this vicious cycle of knowledge and creativity, and like, how can we make this work? Zoom, you can only pin Zoom to 2 different monitors, but let's look at other apps like Google Meet or Teams, and maybe we can pin 4 to 5 monitors, and then you rewire that back in as video sources, and now you've got a 6 camera setup, and it just builds upon itself. And especially, you know, it's like, you know, cats and dogs. You corner a cat. If you back a cat into a corner, it's going to figure something out to survive. And that's what we did the last year, is that it was like, you can't leave the house. How are you going to be fulfilled? How are you going to stay productive and positive and engaged? And we figured it out. We made it happen.
No, definitely. No, I mean, already a year later, it's interesting. Yeah. That, like, you think about it at the time, and then you don't kind of think about it. You're just living through it. And it was like, I mean, yeah, it was obviously a standstill type of deal, but yeah, I mean, all that time just jammed by. And now it's, you know, yeah. But now kind of hearing from people, like, even if you are looking for a new opportunity, or if you're not, or talking to people, they're just like, yeah, well, yeah, they're like, well, you know, we're back in the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And so it's learning that this whole cycle of just how things are, I guess, maneuvering. So it's a life experience, no doubt.
Absolutely. So in regards to, you know, either recruiting or video production or what have you, professionally, have you been back on set, on location? Have you been back in the office, in the field, in one way or another?
You know, I mean, I was pretty fortunate to have worked from home for the past 5 years. So
it was really no change for you.
Right. Okay. So really, being on the production side of a lot of stuff, like a couple of years back, obviously we wouldn't have known, but yeah, I mean, definitely had been at home and had kind of a home office setup. So I guess I kind of, you know, I got to kind of be behind, you know, be at my own scene, be behind the scenes type thing. And and yeah, I guess, nobody would have known otherwise, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting to think about now too.
Now, like you were always kind of set, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think knowing that I had worked from home and I could, either hunker down during the pandemic or yeah, now that we're in 2021 going forth, it's it's going to be interesting.
So I'm cautious about this question, but and feel free to answer however you want. But are you vaccinated?
I am. I got
Awesome.
I got the Pfizer vaccine back in April.
Okay.
So
is the Pfizer just the one shot? One and done. This is a 2 shot. Yeah.
2 shot and wiped me out pretty good both times.
Yeah.
And but I never fully got sick. I was just beat up and just kind of rested and then felt pretty good the next day.
Oh yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, I got both shots. I think I got the Moderna, and so fully vaccinated. And yeah, I mean, I think it's important for it to be done for the general masses. It's I mean, there was a good quote. Now it slips my mind. It's I'm not getting the vaccine just for myself. I'm getting it for everyone else, or something like that. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
One of those philosophical things,
Yeah. Yep.
So, it's been a hell of a year. I mean, I'm looking at the new year more along the lines of like the new year starts in March now. Like we locked down in March. For me, it was March 12th. Lockdown on March 12th. So by the time March 12th came, March 2021 came around, that's really the new year. Kind of how is that new year looking for us and looking better for us? And so when you think, first off, do you think it's too late for me to say to you Happy New Year? It's like, what is it, June 1st today?
June 1st, yeah.
Yeah. Is it too late for Happy New Year?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, it is interesting. Yeah, just because like I don't know, the years tend to go pretty fast. But no, I mean, I don't think it's ever too late.
Because all of a sudden it's a year and a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a year and a quarter from that quarantine. But if I were to say to you, what's the new you? What's the new year, new you, or the new normal, new you? Kind of all-encompassing new normal, new year, new Greg. What comes to mind? What in your mindset, in your activities, your hobbies, your mindset, your emotional psychological state? What comes to mind when I say the new you, the new normal, new you?
New normal. Wow. Yeah. Never really been approached with that one before, but I don't know. Yeah. Just, everybody wants to be a little, everyone wants to be a little stronger. I think a little more experienced, and you know what I mean? Like, yeah. How do you really showcase yourself after all this? Because we've all had to live through it. So, stronger, bolder, wiser. You know what I mean? Like, like what can and cannot we do during, after living through a pandemic type thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, how resilient are you? How fearful are you, I guess?
Yeah, like a couple of movies just came out recently that dealt with pandemics and dealt with lockdowns. Army of the Dead with Dave Bautista, Netflix original, Zack Snyder movie.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of touched upon it a little bit, and it was a little reminiscent of like quarantine pandemic stuff, zombie movie, a little bit of Escape from New York, but instead Vegas. And it was a little mix of all sorts of stuff. And there was something else I had just recently watched too, but I can't think of it, but you know, like all these kind of quarantine movies that come out now, and it's almost like a memory. It's almost like, yeah, that's right, we lived through that. Not where at this point now, my mindset is like, wow, I remember that the hand sanitizer and the toilet paper and the paper towels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of the you know, member of March 2020, March, April, May of 2020, everyone was freaking out about toilet paper and hand sanitizer and
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like, yeah, we lived through that because it's almost done. You know, I'm in a facility now where masks aren't required because we couldn't take we couldn't do this certain we couldn't take this gig unless we were fully vaccinated. And so
Okay.
so then we get here, there's no quarantine. Fully vaccinated is fully vaccinated. There's no quarantine, there's no masks, and it's like 2018 again, 2017 again. We're walking on the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, we're just walking around in buildings, just, you know, living life like we did 2 years ago. And it's like, wow. And maybe that's just because that certain mindset now you're thinking like, holy shit, that's right, man. You couldn't leave the house. You couldn't even get in. You couldn't even go from your house to your car without a mask on because the neighbors would look at you weird. You know,
Uh-huh.
man.
Totally.
And it's only been a year and a half. So it's wild.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I mean, I still wear the mask at the grocery store. You know, this whole, you know, oh, you don't have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated, but I'll still play it smart and safe and yeah. I mean, you know, I'll you know, I'm always one to kind of follow the rules, so I'm not gonna, you know, I don't really, yeah. If it's tested us in any way, it's to be smart. So I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, it's an experience to have lived through, and now we're here, and it's what are we doing? 21 and 22, so to speak.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of which, what's next on the agenda? What's the next set of goals? What's the next set of plans? What's next on the agenda for Greg ORSCHELN?
You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I've built this little mantra of wanting to help people, you know. So it's, I think with the recruiting, that's kind of where all that started, you know, and you know, get out, help people, you know, find bigger opportunities for themselves, you know, better dreams. And so I think something along that, you know, something along those lines. I guess, you know, to build a business, you got to be kind of creative and have those, you know, have those things that work for you too, you know. So you know, I think I'm always kind of jamming in the brain of where to start and, you know, how I can reach out and, you know, help people.
Okay.
So I think, you know, whether it's Nexus, which was our company, or whether I venture out and do something new, I think it's going to be a decision, hopefully, that's smart and people will take consideration of.
Yeah, I mean, as far as creativity, this whole thing has taught me, you know, so you know, going back 5-6 years, let's go back even further, you know, 15 to 20 years. I was in college, I was studying film production, never thought I'd be acting in my life. I always was behind the camera, and the military helped me break down that self-consciousness and give me that boost of confidence. I got into great shape, and it kind of gave me that acting skill to play military or police officers. And it was just that event. And then with quarantine, it was like, okay, now we really have to think outside the box and really get creative and really experiment. Experimentation, positivity, experimentation, and creativity, thinking outside the box. That's what quarantine taught me. And it was try again. And some of my partners did not want to even think about a podcast. You know, they said, dude,
wow.
we failed already at this bunch. Let's do something different. I'm like, dude, there's nothing else to do. You and I we FaceTime as buddies. We drink and we FaceTime and we just talk shit all the time. Let's record that and see what happens. And our viewership kind of grew, and our subscribers kind of grew, not exponentially, but way more than before the first two failures. But our content, but you and a lot of other folks have wanted to jump on. Our viewership is not there, and our viewership and our level, as far as, you know, the Adam Carollas, the Joe Rogans, the Howard Sterns or whatever, not even close. But everyone's so quick to jump on the show anyway. And maybe maybe the other guests that I've had or that are next on the agenda have watched this stuff, and they're interested because of what it is, whatever it is, what we're doing. But at the end of the day, it's like, what else is going, as far as when we picked up Zombie SquadCAST in the beginning of the quarantine, it was like, what the hell else are we doing? I mean, you and I could play video games online and then film each other, and that might be funny. And he goes, well, I sure as shit can't play video games. I'm terrible at video games, but I can sure as hell sit in front of a webcam and just chat with you about like whatever I want to talk about and whatever you want to talk about. I'm like, yeah. So that's how, and that's how that whole thing turned into the third try, which has been consecutive and which has been kind of ongoing, and in my mind successful, because subscribers have grown and viewership has grown. But even more so, aside all that aside, folks are still like, how many times have you and I had to reschedule for whatever God knows reasons? But you still remain interested. Of course, I want you on, but for some reason, whatever I'm doing, you still somehow remained interested to reschedule, make it work. Oh God, so many daycare issues I had, and probably so many scheduling issues you had. But I could tell you 95% of my issues were daycare. And we finally switched and got a different daycare. And plus, now that I'm out of town, now that's a whole new schedule, production lineup. But for some reason, you stuck with me and said, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Let's bump it next week. And then now we're finally doing it. So
and hopefully that's hopefully that grows into be a good hopefully that grows into be a good thing. Hopefully that's a good connection thing. Hopefully people didn't just drop you, but I think being, you obviously being kind of a film guy, I've always kind of been interested in storytelling and podcasts. And I think if you find that interaction with people and then find a connection, then maybe that just, I don't know, maybe that leads somewhere and maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Well, you raised a good point. What the hell is a podcast nowadays anymore?
Yeah. Right.
Because, and I was talking about this with a previous guest, Jeffrey Wright now voices Batman on, they call it a podcast, but it's a Batman podcast, but it's much more like those old Batman serials from the 1920s and 30s. And now they're doing, but now they call it a podcast, but it's more narrative. And so I guess if it's some sort of broadcast, because the whole podcast thing was, oh God, there was this one guy who coined the term, and then Adam Carolla kind of like took it to the next level. Obviously, Joe Rogan took it to the next level after that. But now you've got a podcast that is just narrative. It's like a horror podcast, and they're narratively walking you through a horror story, as opposed to when podcasts first started, it was comedians just shooting the shit, or it was politicians just shooting the shit, and that's their podcast. And now but now a podcast can be just about anything. Kevin Smith got a movie greenlit because he was reading some weird story in a classified, and then that got turned into Tusk, the film that he wrote and directed, Tusk.
Oh wow. Okay.
But a year or two prior to him making Tusk, he found some weird, classified in the back of a newspaper, and he just read the classified, and he's just kind of like, what kind of weirdo would put this story what kind of weirdos trying to like hire somebody, and it would, he's just talking shit, and that turned into the outline, the treatment, the synopsis of the pitch for the film was that episode of his podcast. And it's just how these things evolve. And now with quarantine, post quarantine, it's even bigger, grander, better, really.
Totally. No, I think podcasts are a great way to connect, no matter what you talk about or whatever. I think it's great that we held on to the idea and that we got to connect, and and yeah, I mean, you've been more than generous to be like, okay, let me reschedule.
Because what else is going on, man? Like, why am I gonna be pissed? Be like, no, screw it, man. You're ruining my whole schedule. Listen, half of it, first off, honestly, half of it was my jacked up schedule. So I'm holding you up, and so so whether you're holding me up or I'm holding you up, it's like, dude, let's push it down. Let's make it happen. Because for me to build my content, number one, I can't be a dick and be like, nope, I'm blackballing you. Like blackballing you out of whoever, else, right? But also the fact that you would want to postpone it, the fact that you would want to, and you have two options. Forget it. It's not going to work. I never want to do it again. Or let's make it work. Of course, I'm going to take that chance, because obviously there's something I'm doing that makes you want to take that chance with me. Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying? Like,
totally.
Is my podcast doing well enough or interesting enough that Greg still why does Greg still want to be on it? Absolutely. I'm gonna facilitate that. I'm gonna accommodate that, because he's seeing something in me, and honestly, I think this shit sucks. We have no subscribers and no views, but this guy still wants to stay on it. So of course.
Well, totally. Well, no, I just want to be beneficial to other people that are trying to get their idea going, or want to get heard or seen, and if that's worth an effort, I think that's totally worth just worth the effort, so to speak.
Hell yeah, man. Well, speaking of which, if there was one last point, one last bit of advice, one last point you'd want to put out there to, what few viewers we do have, but if there's one last point, one last bit of advice you want to put out there, what would that be?
Oh man, just like anybody in general, you mean? Or
in your field, in my field, your field, just whoever's watching, just generally, whatever comes to mind.
Gosh, just stay strong and stay resilient. And don't you get a lot. You tend to get a lot of no's in life, but just kind of see this. Try to stay on a straight line path, and just meet people that hopefully will believe in you. It's you know what I mean, at some point. And I think that's kind of what happened to me in some way, is that someone thought that, I might be good at, someone took a chance on me, I guess, so to speak, and that felt pretty good. Kind of saw my crooked road in the past, and then, oh my gosh, something great, really, really happened. And that can happen, I think, if you stay resilient.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, based on what you said, for me, it's like the worst thing someone could say is no. I've gotten a lot of no's, and every other episode of this podcast, I brought up Shawshank Redemption. But have you ever seen Shawshank Redemption?
Absolutely.
Okay. So he kept writing the state to get money for that library. He would write one letter a day to get some sort of donation to that library he was trying to build in the prison. He wrote them a letter a day, every day, probably for years. Finally, he gets a check for $10, and now he could buy a bunch of books. Morgan Freeman says, to Tim Robbins, he says, are you finally done with those letters? He goes, nope, now I'm going to write 2 letters a day.
Mm-hmm.
He got a no every day. He got a rejection every day. He continued to write 1 letter every day. Rejected. And finally, He got a yes. He's like, okay, now I'm gonna write 2 letters a day. And the worst thing someone could say is no. Hey, can you know, like with auditions and you know, submitting your script, it's like, no, it doesn't mean it's not good. It means if you're a 50-year-old white male and you wrote a screenplay, you know, that encompasses kind of like the life of a 50-year-old white male, but a 35-year-old black female says no to it, that's because she's not making those scripts. She's making different scripts. She's producing different movies. You just keep pushing that script out to somebody, and vice versa. Young black females are pushing these scripts out, and just because, you know, some old white fogey like me is like not interested because I like action, I like, you know, shit blowing up, and you've got this family film, you know, about a black family, and me personally, I probably can't relate, and I'm not into those films, so I don't want to produce those films. Someone else will. You keep pushing those scripts out. You keep pushing that script out. You pass it to this person, pass it to this person, pass it to that person. Someone will say yes. If I audition for a role, most times they put that audition as looking for male, 20 to 40 years old, any ethnicity, for a dad role, and I auditioned for it. They made the audition call for one thing, just because they want to keep their options open. But guess what? The director has a laser beamed decision made on what he wants for that role, and so I'm being told no, not because I suck, but because he's looking for something completely different.
Totally. No, totally. I think, yeah, I mean, some no's are a good thing, and you're like, oh, well, that just wasn't meant for me in a way. But then, like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, you definitely do hear no quite a bit, and, you know, yeah, I think you have to you got to create your own destiny. You got to create your own surrounding, and let some people know what you're all about and how serious you are. And, you know, if there's something, so connecting for me, even on a podcast like this, even if your ratings weren't good, I would hope that, like, maybe you can swing the other way just by a touch of a good podcast, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you never know. I mean, like, something will just click one day, and the next thing you know, it's just skyrocketing. I mean, it's like stocks too. I mean, everyone was doing stocks and Robinhood over the quarantine, and things skyrocketed, and things dropped, and this thing skyrocketed again. And it's just, at the end of the day, for me, my biggest philosophy is you have to love what you do. You have to do something that you love, because if you don't love it, you're not going to put 100% into it. You're not really going to be successful at it. There's a lot of stock. There's, you know, like a lot of bankers and financial this and financial that, or government this and that, and they half-ass it because they really don't care about it. But there's folks that make half that money doing something they absolutely adore and love, and they're extremely successful, and they might actually even get famous because they're doing something that they just adore. They love it. They put 110% into it. They never get fired, and they're constantly rising further and further to the top because they put all of themselves into it because they love it.
Totally. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So I'm just always about connecting, talking, chatting with other people, see what their interests are. Obviously, yeah, you're a film guy, or do you direct, produce? I mean, obviously, like, I think you said act, right?
And act too. Yeah. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, you know, long story short, I had the degree in directing and producing and writing, and the technical stuff behind the scenes. But to fill in the schedule, and after I had, you know, done the military thing for a while, I started acting and taking on law enforcement or military roles to fill in the schedule. Like, I got a gig here and it's 2 weeks, but then nothing for a month, and then a gig here for a month, and then nothing for a month. So maybe if I start, you know, experimenting with acting, taking small roles, on law enforcement, military roles, supporting roles, featured roles, whatever, that started actually taking over the schedule. It was more of that than it was production for a year or two. And then there was like this constant just filling the schedule. Listen, I got a gig for a month, so I got to fill up this month. Took a bunch of commercial work or, you know, supporting role work or crime shows or whatever, and acting in this and that and the other thing. And taking on, and I even told those crews, those producers, those casting agents, typecast me. I don't give a shit, because the biggest thing for me is I want to, you know, for example, actors always have a fallback. You know, someone's a professional actor, but they're a bartender or a waiter or a car salesman or real estate. And the next thing you know, they fall back on their fallback and they quit. But my fallback still remained in audio video. It was live events. It was live streaming. It was camera work. It was acting. It was graphic design. It was remotely editing something. It was going to you know, conventions and shooting or setting up mics or you know, hanging speakers at events, or it was being an AD or directing a music video. And it was just whatever my life, whatever I can do, but stay within that universe of audio, video, film, and TV. That's my fallback. My fallback will fall back on each other within that universe. And that was the goal, to at least stay in it, to stay alive, fed, a roof over my head, you know, take care of the wife and kid. But at the same time, I'm not freaking selling houses. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not selling houses. I'm not quitting everything and selling cars, selling houses, or bartending. You know, it's still within that. It's still within that universe, different, and still somehow different set, different location, traveling. And still something, you know, to like, you know, I'm not trying to knock other industries, but something that I can brag about. I'm in, you know, I'm in New Orleans this week. I'm in Mexico another week. I'm in Montreal another week. I'm in New York another week. You know, that sort of thing. So,
where's your home base?
DC area, Maryland and DC. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's
very nice. Well, it's always kind of exciting to chat with another creative and kind of get like where you've been and where your journey's all about. I think that's, and then if we ever hook back up or reconvene, I think that's a big part of it too. Like you kind of find who's a part of your journey and who's kind of not, and people that kind of fall off, it's not a big deal. I think you just kind of have to find folks that believe and know and who you are, and that's really kind of life, really.
Hell yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, before we close this out, any links, plugs, socials you want to put out there?
You know, I don't have anything on me at the time, but I mean, I definitely have kind of a portfolio of like film and short films that I've done and stuff. And I've done some marketing stuff. I mean, you know, definitely creative, always trying to stay creative. And that's definitely what I've tried to do. Like amongst recruiting, but, you know, definitely always kind of trying to collaborate on a project but if I do have a link or something I can find, I've got a couple of CDs with some stuff I could probably send over or attach or at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Send me those links. Those links will be in the description below. And so everybody can click on those links. Well, Greg, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It was great chat. Learned a lot.
Absolutely.
Like you said, love connecting and networking and you know, just bouncing ideas off each other, man. It was a blast.
No, for sure. Thanks for having me, and good luck overseas if that's where you are. And yeah, hopefully reconvene or touch base in the near future if possible.
Absolutely, brother. Well, hey, to the viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know Greg has. And until next time, you know what to do. To the viewers out there, if you want to become an honorary member of the Zombie Squad, send me some, hit me up on any of the socials. Send me the name that you want to be credited as a honorary member of Zombie Squad. Send me your favorite 1 or 2 profile pictures, avatars, what have you, your profile pictures on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and we can squad you up. I will make you an honorary member of the Zombie Squad, and I'll design all this stuff. I'll design a t-shirt, I'll design your logo, your whole Zombie Squad kind of profile if you want to be an honorary member of Zombie Squad, and give you the options to buy a t-shirt, to buy a phone case, to buy a pillow, to buy a tapestry, to buy a hoodie, to whatever the hell you want. But if you want to be an honorary member of the Zombie Squad, let me know. And
but you got to they got to put in the work though.
All they have to do is send me 1 or 2 of their profile pics, and they'll be an honorary member of the Zombie Squad.